Yo, everybody, what is happening? It's Tuesday night. You know what that means. It's time for Flyers Talk A to D tonight. History was made on Sunday. We're going to touch on the Ovi milestone, what that could potentially mean for him moving forward. Also, we're going to talk about your favorite Ovi moments. So think about that. Drop them in the chat later on in the show. We'll get to all the Ovi moments. And before we do all that, though, we got some Flyers talk we got to get to. Flyers eliminated from the playoffs. A lot to talk about the future of this organization. So hit that like, hit that subscribe. It's time to get at it. Let's go talk some puck. Welcome to the show, everybody. Your man Dale's taking the reins tonight on Flyers Talk A2D tonight. Like I said just before, we're talking a little bit of Flyers. We can talk a little bit of history with Alexander Ovechkin 21 years later, almost to the day. Show tonight, as always, is brought to you by Specialized Physical Therapy. Head on over to either the Cherry Hill or Burlington locations. They'll take good care of you over there. Or beforehand, head over to specializedphysicaltherapy.com. Dr. Paul Vidal will take good care of you and his staff. So he's our doc. Make him yours. With me as always, my man to whichever direction that is, depending on where you're facing, that's Rob Povia. Underneath me, we got Brad Ryers, the usual suspects. Maddie MIA this week, but should be back with us when we come back again next week. But got a lot to talk about here, boys. So first things first, how are we doing this week?
You know, hanging in, man. Hanging in. It's always tough when your team's eliminated from playoff contention, but I think ultimately it's going to be good for this team long term. Time to lick the wounds into the offseason. We'll get into all that talk. But just personally, you know, looking forward to what should be a lively NHL playoffs, Brad. But not many local teams. A lot of local teams could be on the outside looking in.
What did I tell you last week about them? This by the time we get on this today, that it will be over.
Yeah,
trust me, it's over.
Oh man, yeah. Bittersweet though for the Flyers. You know, we're heading into a lot of all-season conversation a little early on here, but, you know, this future of this organization is bright, whether a lot of people want to believe it or not. You know, we have, draft coming up. We have free agency coming up. A lot of cool things happening for the Flyers. But first things first, we want to get to, you got to figure out the head coaching situation for this team. And, you know, a lot of options out there. And one of the options right now, honestly, believe it or not, to me is going to be Brad Shaw. Which brings us to our poll question. In his first 4 games, Brad Shaw is making a case at being head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers. Agree or disagree? Drop your comments in the chat. Brad, we'll start with you. What do you think? Agree or disagree? You think Brad Shaw is starting to make a little bit of a case to be head coach of this organization?
Yes, I do. The Flyers have noticeably played better since he's taken over. Now, you have to remember when a coach gets fired and a new guy steps in, usually it gives a team a nice little bump, you know, and they start playing better. It's just human nature. You know, you're whoever the person was that was in charge before, you know, if a lot of guys on the team didn't like him, he was making their lives miserable and they didn't enjoy coming to work every day. It's human nature. It's kind of like our jobs. When you have a boss that you can't stand, you know, you're just like, you know, fuck this job, fuck this, fuck that. You know, you got. I mean, it's human nature. So I'm gonna say that he's making a case, but I don't know if it's hard to put a finger on it. It depends who is available. It really does. You know, but I would say this: he's definitely making a case at being the head coach of the Flyers. I agree. Whether they hire him or not to do that, again, it depends on who's available. You know, if Mike Sullivan is available, he's not going to be. Then, you know, most likely Bradshaw is not going to be the coach of the Flyers. Okay, if somebody like that is not available, yeah, I think he's got a shot. I think you'd be better off with him than picking up some of these retreads out there that continue to get fired from or any other organizations you can name and pick them up. What are they going to do that's any different than what Tortorella did?
Fair enough. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, Bradshaw does tend to have a little bit of the same tendencies as John Tortorella, which is why I thought Tortorella and him worked really well together and why the defense and the offense flowed a little bit better than expected. I mean, obviously, we thought that this team was going to be take a massive step back. I don't think they really have. But, I mean, Shaw, like I said, has a lot of the same tendencies as Tortorella as far as coaching goes. The only difference I've seen so far, Rob, and I'm sure you could probably agree with this, he's given him a little bit more of a leash. He's given him more of a leeway, more chance to have fun. It's not as, I don't want to use the term structured or lack of structure, but there's definitely, you can tell that these guys are out there having fun. What do you think about the poll there, Robbie?
I think Brad himself is having fun with it because he's just not sure how long this roller coaster will last. And I think he has the right idea here, and it's about setting off a good taste in the player's mouth, in the organization's mouth, in the fan base's mouth, heading into the offseason and looking at a roster that undoubtedly is going to look much, much different come 2025-26. I don't put much stock in these first 4 games. Who have the Flyers really played? I mean, has he righted the ship well enough? Sure. The play was putrid leading into Tortorella's firing, but you're playing teams like the Nashville Predators who are on a down year as well. Right now, it's just about draft position at this point, but I can see Bradshaw sticking around to help guide a new young head coach who doesn't have NHL experience. Mike Sullivan maybe would want to have his own staff, but if you maybe brought in a David Carl or BC's head coaches, as Brad brought up last week, it'd be nice to have a guy that's been around the block in the NHL and Bradshaw, and he could return in that associate coach role because after all, let's face facts, he's done a terrific job with this defense and deserves to stick around. I just don't see him as head coach material. I don't think he has in his arsenal what it takes for this team to take that next step, quite frankly, Brian.
And that's fair. I mean, he doesn't have the experience as a head coach anywhere from what I've been looking. And just some things over the last couple games that I've noticed. Obviously, he's got the 3-1 record as an interim head coach for the Philadelphia Flyers. This team went on a little bit of a offensive tear as well for 17 goals in that same span. Defense is playing a little bit better, but when you play a team like Montreal that's on the cusp, and honestly, they just got a little bit better with Demidov signing his ELC this afternoon. They're turning themselves into a little bit of a scary team. So to be able to outscore them 6-4 in the first game, I mean, you fall in the second game, but yeah, it's a rough start to the third period. You still got to give up 12 goals against. Not terrible, but you're averaging 26 shots on goal in the last 4 games too. So that being said, I feel like this team definitely has a bit more of a spark. I do think Bradshaw is making a case. I don't necessarily think he's going to wind up getting it. But if they decide not to remove the interim label, I think maybe the Flyers do give him an opportunity early on next year, give him a short leash to see how he starts off, especially if they continue to have him finish strong. Some of the things that I like I said, you're seeing a little bit of a jump. They're skating harder. They seem like they're having more fun. They're shooting more. Defensively, they're in a little bit better position. And the thing that I love is the game that Mitch Cobb got robbed of his first career hat trick. You wouldn't have seen John Tortorella react behind the bench the way that Brad Shaw did. Throwing his arms up in the air like, oh my God, like how did he miss that? You wouldn't see that. You just wouldn't see that from a guy like John Tortorella. So I think that makes him a little bit more relatable. And I think that that's a kind of a show that he's having more fun. But I think ultimately I'm with you, Rob. I don't think he winds up being the head coach for the full season. I do think maybe they do give him a little bit of a I do think they give him a little bit of a leash. But if they don't, and they don't want to remove the interim, you have to get a coach as soon as possible. You have to get a coach before the draft. That way you can start setting your roster up. You can start getting your draft done. Because as of right now, they're drafting 5th, which puts them in a really good spot for, and we'll talk about this in a few minutes, for a big-bodied 6'5" center that I'm thinking of. And that to me is going to be addressing one of their major needs, which, like I said, is going to be great. But you got to get the head coach first. So before we go a little bit further into more of that like pre-draft talk, so Flyers are officially eliminated after the loss to Montreal. Kind of a like I said, it's bittersweet. Do you think that this team played under or above expectations this year? Because there's a lot of people that think that they didn't. And, obviously at one point, everybody said tank mode. I believe this team played a little bit above expectation, or at least above my expectation. When Danny said that they were going to take a step back, I thought that, we're talking like they're going to finish like dead last, like 20 wins. Everybody stank, sell off the entire team. So right now they are 31, 37, and 9 with about 5 games to go. They're going to finish a couple points less than what they finished last year, should they win out. Robbie, did they play up to your expectations this year?
As a team, I really think it hit the mark in terms of what Danny was saying, that we would take a step back because we saw more holes in this team, right, coming into this season that really weren't adequately filled at all. So as a team, no, I think they actually fulfilled my expectations on where they were going to be. They were going to be on the outside looking in, right, until you have some of the young pups take that next step in their maturation down in juniors and AHL and college respectively, and see that infusion in the next 2 to 3 seasons, right? What disappointed my expectations was more on an individualistic level coming in. We really thought we would see players like Owen Tippett take that next step, and clearly has not. We expected Morgan Frost as an opportunist could potentially take a top 6, if not top line center role. He's no longer in town. Joel Farabee as well out in Calgary. So Tyson Forster, I liked at times, but also lacked some consistency. So I'm a little disappointed in terms of the development, and maybe, just maybe, that led into Tortorella's firing because of the stagnation in the development of these young players. I mean, we saw Noah Cates take a good step forward. We saw Bobby Brink take a good step forward. But we saw also players like Cam York, who wasn't really seeing eye to eye with Tortorella, and that's a nice way to put it, right? Take a big step back so a new voice can maybe come in here and help those players take the next step, because individually they definitely disappointed me.
I mean, there's definitely a lot to be disappointed about. You brought up a lot of good points there, Robbie. I think the best point that you brought up was Tyson Forster. That was a kid we needed for him to show what he's made of. And I am kind of curious now that we had a conversation last week about Tortorella being fired, how much that had to do with the lack of development. There was a lot of changes to this roster. There was definitely a lot of changes to this roster. Like you said, Morgan Frost, Joel Farabee, Scott Lawton. Really the only addition that stuck around has been Jacob Peltier. And he's actually starting to turn it on too. So that's a major break point for me, is especially with Bradshaw taking over, Peltier kind of starting to take the reins a little bit. Hopefully he continues that throughout the rest of the season so he can have something to build off of going into next year. The one thing that I'm curious about is now that Tortorella is gone, there's a lot of reports out there that he's was kind of in his way asking to get fired. So my question is going to lead to this, Brad. Do you think that, especially in the second half of the year, we started to see John Tortorella's demeanor kind of change? Do you think his change in his demeanor, the change in some of his comments during post-game and pre-game interviews, do you think that had a lot to do with maybe the guys' how did you phrase it? Stagnation there, Robbie, dropping big words on stagnation in their development.
Yeah, look, I'm going to compare it to to when the Rangers had him, and it seemed like the team wanted to score, they wanted to skate, and they had a lot of talent, and his ways of playing were very defensive minded, blocking shots and everything else. And when Alain Vigneault came in, and I'm just using this as an example, okay? The next year they got all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals, and they scored a lot of goals. Everybody, I remember Marian Gaborik feuding with him. He had 18 goals the year he got fired. Henrik Lundqvist was screaming about the fact about Marian Gaborik that Marian Gaborik shouldn't be blocking shots. He should be being fed the puck and going on breakaways and scoring. And that his system's a little bit antiquated. And in today's NHL, it's not there's more skating that's brought into the league now, and not as much of the blocking shots and trying to take all the room out of the off the ice, so the guys can skate around. That's something that he plays in layers and everything, and that was something that the Rangers players did not like. And when Vigneault came in, it was like a big vacation, and the Rangers got a lot better. They almost won the Stanley Cup. They lost 3 double overtime games in that series against the Kings. And then unfortunately Vigneault wore out his welcome because he wasn't holding anybody accountable, kind of like Laviolette. And so the cycle begins. But in the Flyers case, I think the same thing happened. Okay, I think that these guys got tired of always trying to block shots and play defensive minded and try to counterattack all the time. I think they want to play. And Bradshaw took the reins off, and they now want to show the whole world that they can in fact play. They can go out and score, and they got some talent. I just don't think at this point. I think at this point they made the right move to get rid of Tortorella. For sure, they needed a change, and I do think that he did. I'm looking for the right word without being rude. He kind of threw a net, if you will, around the team so that they couldn't be as good a team as they could be offensively. We all know about the Flyers power play, okay? Now again, I keep going back to the Rangers because that's the team I know, guys. Okay, back in 2012,
well, we have you all, Brad.
The Rangers' power play stunk, horrible. Vigneault comes in, it was great that year. Same talent. Sometimes it just takes somebody to take the nails off of these guys, let them play. And I do think that the guys got tired of that. And, they stopped listening to him, which is what happens. And, I don't like seeing players, purposely tank. I do think some of the guys were doing that because they just got so fed up with them. And I do believe if you get a coach that is a player's coach that lets them play, that lets them skate, opens the game up for them, I think you're going to see them be a lot better next year. They'll score a lot more goals. They're going to need to add some defensemen. There's a couple of defensemen. As I look through the through the free agents that I think the Flyers might be very wise to try to get Aaron Ekblad, who's 29-year-old defenseman. He's won the Stanley Cup in Florida. If Florida doesn't re-sign him, he might be a very good player for them to get. He can score. He's a veteran. He knows how to win. He's won a Stanley Cup. And I do believe that when you sign guys who've been to the Stanley Cup finals and won, I do think that has a effect on everybody. I mean, you could even make a guy like that the captain of the team. He's kind of been Florida's leader defensively since they really got good. So I think he'd be a good fit.
Even before that, for sure.
Yeah. You look at the centers that are available, and I know we're going to get into that a little later, but there's really not a lot of centers that are in free agency that are going to help. I mean, unless you want to spend a hell of a lot of money on John Tavares, and John Tavares has really turned it on since the Canada win. In the four nations, I think he's got 18 goals in 22 games.
It's something like that.
Yes, it's something like that. I think that's more of a money drive, to be honest with you. And I nothing against John Tavares. That might be a bit of a money drive, right?
No, for sure. And Brad, you hit the nail pretty much right on the head there. With some of the free agents, and like you said, we're going to get into this in a couple minutes here. But Aaron Ekblad is a guy on my list as far as free agents go. But to me, this is why I'm going to say this. This is why the coach is first. This is why you got to make the coach priority, because the right coach is going to draw some appeal to the free agents. Because right now, we know your Flyers were signing guys like Garnet Hathaway and Nick Delorier and some of the more grittier guys in the league, because I feel like that's what that coach attracted. You bring in the right coach, like a David Carl, a Rod Brindamore, a Mike Sullivan, a guy who's going to basically attract more skill players. I think is going to be more appealing to a guy like an Aaron Ekblad to want to come here, or some of the other higher end free agents. But I mean, you also hit the nail right on that.
Look, there are some decent free agents, Brian, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's very thin though.
It's really thin, and there's really let's be honest. The top center, in my opinion, is Claude Giroux. Are you really going to do that again?
I mean, nostalgia.
I mean, I know you guys
just
love
for that
Claude
reason
Giroux.
only, so we can retire Flyer.
Yeah, I mean, I think Claude Giroux. I've been saying it for a while. I think Claude Giroux is a future Hall of Fame player, but there's the center pool is really bad.
Yeah,
in free agency, if the Flyers want a center, they're going to have to trade for one. Now you got four first round picks. I think if you ditch a couple. Huh?
Since you want to bring it up, let's dive into the free agent options before we do anything else. So let's just go out and we're gonna play a little speculation game here, because it's what I like to do for some reason. So speculation: we hire a guy like a David Carl, we hire a guy like a Rod Brindamore, a Mike Sullivan, one of those guys that's going to really bring in and attract a younger or a player like that. So if we look at the free agency right now, top free agents according to Puckpedia: Mitch Marner. Possibility, but unrealistic. Matt Duchene's probably going back to Dallas. John Tavares is probably going back to Toronto. I've heard a lot of extension talks with them. Nikolai Ehlers, Michael Granlund.
I like Nikolai Ehlers.
Ryan Donato, Brock Nelson, Patrick Kane, Sam Bennett, Brock Besser. Those are going to be your guys that are basically going to fill out your unrestricted free agent pool. Those are like the top players in there. It's not great, but it's not terrible. A lot of aging players in there. I would say probably the youngest, best. Fits. Yeah. That's.
Well, Ekblad is 29, so I mean I think he's the perfect player for the Flyers defensively.
Mm-hmm. And I would agree with you there. Robbie brought up a great article the other day, and I've been saying this for a couple of weeks as well. If the Flyers are going to make a splash in free agency, it's going to have to be an RFA.
Yeah.
It has to be, because it's such a deep pool. I mean, just listen to these couple, just the top free agents off of the restricted side. You have Evan Bouchard, Gabriel Velarde, JJ Patakara. I always butcher his last name, and I don't know why. Marco
We know
Rossi.
who you're talking about. Paterka.
Yep. Paterka.
Turka. Yeah.
After I hear it, I can say it. Marco Rossi, Matthew Nyes, Morgan Geeky, Mason McTavish, Ryan McLeod. Those are just some of the top end RFAs. So there's
on the defense,
yeah. So there's a lot more options there, and you brought it up, Brad, and I'm glad you did because a lot of the compensation for some of these RFAs is going to be draft picks. Flyers have a ton of them. They have 8 picks in their first 3 rounds. And obviously, the way that it's going to break down for the RFAs is it's going to be based off of salary from the previous year. So, I mean, obviously, they're not going to have to give up 4 first-round picks. They're not going to have to give up 3 first-round picks. Realistically, they're probably going to have to give up a first and a third, I think. I think that's the highest that they're going to have to come off of. Nothing is really going to be more than that because a lot of these guys are only making as high as like $3.5, maybe $4 million a year. So they're not making too much. It's not outlandish to think that they're going to have to give up 2 firsts and, give up the whole farm to sign an RFA, which is not going to happen. Brink saying he doesn't trust the front office. Trust them now. $25 million in salary cap relief right now. They have a ton of money to play with this offseason. This is the first time they've had this amount of money in Lord knows how long.
There's not a lot of talent out there.
No, this is where the RFAs come into play.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Either make a trade or sign an RFA. The only problem is with RFAs, they can match. That's the only problem. But you could also
you throw out a bunch of offers though. You throw out a bunch of offers, and not all the teams are going to match them. And you have, and to Brian's point, you have the draft capital to they don't match. You have to fork over those draft picks. They can do that, and especially a team like your Rangers, where you have 2 key guys both on offense and defense in Will Coley and Keandre Miller. I think the Flyers could potentially pry one of them from you.
Oh, please, please take Miller. He is the greatest defenseman I've ever seen in my life. He can open up a bakery back in his own zone, sell all the turnovers he wants. You can have him, and he wants $6 million to boot.
Yeah, I mean, if you hit the right organization.
To me, the best fit, and it's Swoopy brought him up in the chat too. The best fit for an RFA would be Marco Rossi, but I don't think there's no way in hell the Minnesota Wild do not match any offer sheet that the Flyers or any team could extend. But if they don't, that would be a great fit. It's a center iceman, but Paterka could be a nice fit. Matthew Nyes, man, that could be a nice.
If you don't Toronto.
Yes, if you don't get Mitch Marner, he's played a lot of top 6 minutes and gained a lot of experience up there. I mean, that could help accelerate this rebuild too. So I think that's the ticket. I think that's what Danny had in mind in terms of stockpiling this draft capital, because the way of the offer sheet is becoming popular. We saw teams last offseason with Dylan Holloway, he went from St. Louis to Edmonton. Is that correct?
St. Louis to Edmonton, yep.
Yeah.
So other way around.
Other way around. I thought it was the other way around. That's why it didn't make sense when I first said it. But in terms of prying guys from the Oilers that they couldn't hold on to pay for their higher and mighty top 2 dynamic duo. So other teams can bet, and I think you're going to start seeing that, and that's why I do trust this front office, because I see a lot of new age thinking. You know what I mean? Not of the old school, so to speak.
Yep. And that's one of the things too to remember moving forward here. Cap space is going to go up. That's big. That's going to allow for more RFAs to go back and forth. So,
and there are a lot. I'll tell you what. here's an interesting one. I don't know if the Flyers could possibly steal this guy, but Jake Ottinger is a RFA as well.
I
He's only
don't see that.
26 years old right now.
I don't see him leaving Dallas. I think they're going to get a deal done sooner than later. Before free
They
agency
spent
hits.
a lot of money on Rantanen, though.
They did, and I didn't think they were going to do it. But
are they going to keep? I guess if they keep Ben, which I think they will, just because of his leadership, are they going to be able to pay Ottinger? I mean, you would have by now they would have worked out something.
I mean, I'm not too worried about signing a goalie like Ottinger. I don't think he's going to be. Yeah, Priss has already signed his extension, so.
Oh, did he?
It's just good possibility. Priss is pretty on top of that. Anything with the Dallas Stars, being in Texas. Okay, so that's going to be a non-issue. But
8 years. There you go. Okay, well that's about right. Okay. Stop
smoking crack.
Hey, it says it. Listen, I'm looking at. Listen, I'm looking at Sport Act. They should usually they keep that stuff up to date. So
I use Puckpedia. That's probably a little bit better. I would switch over. Noah Eaton, what's up, Noah? I know he's still around here from time to time. Noah, OG A2D. OG A2D. Let's go.
Definitely shout out Frozen 4.
Yeah, let's go. Swoopy commented and he said, yeah, Bri, cap room, but no front office who agrees with the coach. No unity, no cohesion. Who all want to seek the same kind of talent, philosophy when it comes to style, system, skills, Same thing that Swoopy pretty much comments every week. But here's the thing. Briere, Jonesy, and Tortorella were all on the same page. Difference now than earlier this season, no cap room to even think about being able to make a move. And theoretically, in theory, Danny Briere puts the roster out there. The head coach doesn't necessarily have a say. I mean, you're not going to really see any GM just sit there and be like, oh, I signed the guy because you don't have a say. I mean, they're all going to work together to put a team together that's going to make sense, especially when it comes to the draft. So it's not like they don't sit there in the same room and talk about it. They do. It's the head coach, scouts, GM, AGM, president of hockey operations. And all those guys are in a room together trying to put these things together. It's not just Danny Briere going out, signing a guy saying, here's your roster, do what you can with it. It's not how it works. They all work together. The thing with it is, like I said before, not every guy fits a system, and now that the Flyers have more cap space, they have a little bit more lore to bring in more skill players. They're not handcuffed like they were, and that's also comes back to the point that I made earlier tonight. I don't know, Swoopy, if you heard it, you got to get the coach first. I know you haven't been with us in the last couple of weeks. We've spent a lot of time discussing who the replacement for Tortorella should be. Pretty unanimous with David Carl for the most part. Rod Brindamore, if he's becomes available, would be a really good fit. Mike Sullivan.
I know, Soupy loves that.
Yeah.
He loves that suggestion.
I know a lot of people that I've talked to love that suggestion. Just because it's not just a structure thing with him. It's a team unity thing. It's not, it's you're playing for the logo on the jersey, not the name on the back. That's something that Tortorella tried to bring to this team that didn't really catch because I think of the way that he kind of portrayed it. Brindamore doesn't portray it in a manner that Tortorella did. But he's a very team first, team bonding, team unity. Look at what he's done. He doesn't even have a superstar. I saw Swoopy's comment earlier saying something along the lines of like, that's how hockey should be played. I disagree. I love Brindamore. I love his system. I think it works very well in the NHL, but to say that it's how it should be, the guy hasn't won a cup. He hasn't been to a cup final since he was a player.
That's because the team is so cheap. They don't want to ever bring in any big time players. And I told you that when they brought in Rantanen that they would end up not signing him. I know they offered him 12 and he ultimately signed for 12 with Dallas, but There's something about Carolina. I don't know what it is, but it just seems that they never want to go all in with when it comes to the money.
Well, they tried to go all in with Rantanen. The problem is Rantanen never wanted to go there in the first place. So that wasn't exactly Carolina cheaping out. That was Carolina, or that was Colorado making a bad trade for Carolina's part. That wasn't. I don't blame
Carolina made
That's
it bad.
Colorado. That's on Colorado. They didn't listen to him. He had 4 teams he wanted to go to, and that was not that. But I'll say this: I like where Carolina is. They're competitive every year. Svechnikov is a stud. Aho is a stud. But they don't have a superstar. They don't have a true superstar on that team. But I do think that if they don't make the Cup final this year, Rod Brind'Amour does not come back next year. And my hope is that he becomes the Flyers head coach. I know Craig Cronin isn't going anywhere after the way the Ducks are wrapping up their season. So, and I agree with you, Swoopy.
I know a team 90 miles north that might want Brind'Amour too, by the way.
Well, probably. I mean, there's going to be a lot of teams that have a vacancy.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not just
he's going to be a hot commodity.
The Flyers. If he becomes available, I think 31 teams will consider that possibility.
And appreciate you, Noah. See your comment here. Great show. Hope next April we have Flyers playoff run to preview. Absolutely. Hopefully. Maybe not next year, but the year after that, I think we'll see that. We'll see how the draft and the offseason goes this year. And I said it before, and I'll say it again. This is going to be a pivotal offseason for Danny Briere. Draft-wise, obviously we are, before we get into Ovi talk here in the final few minutes, draft talk. Flyers currently in 5th. That could change. They could go a little bit higher. They could go a little bit lower. But right now, if there was no draft lottery, which I think is the dumbest thing ever, but I understand why they do it. Flyers sit in 5th. Couple options there. And obviously we know 2 of the bigger needs for the Philadelphia Flyers.
Or second, though, you never know.
No, you never know, but we're going based off of just
history.
No draft lottery, and we're just where they are in the standings right now. So if we're looking at the top 5, right? We're looking at the top 5 of the draft. I have from NHL.com the top 5, or essentially the top draft prospects of the 2025 draft. Question is going to be, do they go center or do they go defenseman? Because they're going to have a couple options in that area. So if they do finish 5th, you're going to have Matthew Schaefer going 1st, James Higgins going 2nd. I know a lot of people want him. I'm not particularly fond of James Higgins, not from a skill standpoint, more from a build standpoint. Michael Mesa going 3rd at 6'1", 184. More of we're heading in the right direction with Michael Mesa as far as I'm concerned, as far as the center position. Porter Martone at 4, Roger McQueen at 5, Vadim Murtka at 6, a very familiar name, and Caleb Denoyer at 7, and Jacob Bryan going 8. One of the things I'm looking for this offseason for the Philadelphia Flyers is going to be size. Size is going to be very important.
Amen.
I like Lachenko. I think he's going to be a top 2. He's going to be a top line center, but he's also small. His ability to skate, and we've seen it with the Phantoms at the AHL level, just masterful. Big thing with him being able to skate like that is going to allow him to get open being a smaller player. What I'm looking for is a top 6 center, future top center, that can body guys, that can play a little bit more of a power position, or I'm looking for a top line defenseman. I'm going to run 2 options by you guys. I want to see what you guys think of these 2. So I'm thinking Roger McQueen at 5, at 6'5", 197, coming out of the WHL. Or I'm thinking Radim Murtka, defenseman out of Seattle in the WHL. Get this. 6'6", 207. That's a big boy.
He's a big boy.
That's a big boy.
Yep.
Now, I didn't get too much into the draft profile yet because I want to save some stuff for our pre-draft show when we do that over the next few days or next few weeks. Heading into the draft in July, end of June.
July 1st, I think. No, that's
maybe.
free agency.
I gotta double. I think it's the end of June, but I want to get your guys' thoughts on this because this is going to be a really big offseason for Briere. I keep saying it. I'm going to keep saying it until the offseason's over. This is pivotal. You know, this pick is going to matter. I don't think you can go wrong with either guy. But as of right now, with how the roster is, Brad, who you taking with the number 5 pick?
McQueen.
Okay.
I think the other guy, just that's too tall. It takes guys like that a while to develop. I'm looking for a guy who you can draft and put in there and start playing right away. And I like big. Obviously, I mean, I like Rempe, so that would tell you all you need to know. Okay, but it takes guys like that a while to be able to play at that size, be coordinated enough, skate enough, be athletic enough to pick up the game at the NHL level and take off with it. And as I said, I would really like to see the Flyers plug and play. And I think that's the way they should go at this point.
I mean, not a bad. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't necessarily think that there's a bad take here. Anthony
No,
saying
there's
he wants
not. Listen,
Mirka.
any team would be happy to grab one of those guys. But the only thing is, as I said, I'm looking at it from just an athletic point of view, that it just takes really, really tall guys a little bit longer. I mean, if you look at who was the guy that played for the Bruins, that's the big guy, I can't remember his name.
Zdeno Chara.
Chara, yeah. When Chara was with the Islanders, okay, or I should say when he was with Ottawa and then he was with the Islanders.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was kind of like, it was kind of like watching. It was like watching Big Bird. It was like watching Big Bird on ice.
Right.
And then he came to Boston, and then he, but that's what I'm saying. It takes guys like that a few years to really get their feet on the ground. But in Chara's case, as you saw, he picked it up eventually, and he became the most frightening defenseman in the history of the league, probably.
Mm-hmm. And he played for a good, what was it, 18, 19, 20 years?
Right. He hit between him and Scott Stevens. If I ever was coming down on the wing and I saw one of those guys coming at me, I think I just dumped the puck in and try to run to the bench as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I mean, when you get a guy that big, he was, they become a menace, especially if they play a really strong physical game where they actually stay disciplined. It's a good thing. Big bodies. I'll say this though, Brad, in your defense, in taking McQueen over Mirka would be, big bodies tend to screen goalies, especially if you're in an offensive system or defensive system that's built to block shots. That can run into a problem.
They do, but at the same point, they also clear the front of the net, and I kind of like guys to do that. I mean, look,
for sure.
You're going to see when you get a big guy like that, you're going to see a few pucks go in off of that. Every defenseman has pucks go in off of them. If you show me a defenseman that hasn't, I'll guarantee you, if you look into their past, they've all given up a few goals. They've all had a few goals bounced in off them. It's the nature of the beast. If you're doing your job, that's going to happen once in a while. Especially if the shots are wide. You're not, and you're shoving a guy out from in front of the net so the goalie can see you. It's going to bounce off your skate and go in. Sometimes it happens like that.
Mm-hmm.
But
agreed.
But you want to me a real good defenseman. I don't care what they do offensively. If they can clear the front of the net, they're on my team.
Okay.
And they can obviously I'd like to see them not be parking cones, and I'd like to see them skate the puck out of the zone, of course. But to me, the most important thing is that they can clear the front of the net, stay disciplined, not take penalties, and maybe get under the other team's skin a little bit. Kind of piss somebody off, and that's kind of like what you really want to do. That's a defenseman to me. That's a perfect Letang to me, and I watch him play for the last 15 years that he's played. Okay, that's the kind of player I always aspire somebody to be. Okay, he can drop his gloves and beat the crap out of you. He's always clear in the front of the net, and obviously he can score. That's to me, that's the perfect defenseman. Chelios was like that, but they're big, small players.
A lot of people call Chelios dirty, but before we move on, because we're in the last 15 minutes here, we still want to talk about the history that was made this weekend. Robbie, who are you taking out of 5?
I'm right with Brad. I'm centering on Roger McQueen. That size, playing for the Brandon Wheat Kings, is an excellent WHL organization. They produce high-quality talent. There's some familiarity with the Flyer system there. I think he's a great fit. He's a great, what he's shown at this point in his young career, a two-way player that this team sorely needs. If I had the choice between him and Merca, the defenseman, I'm going Roger McQueen. This team needs centers badly. I'd even be willing, all right, let's say McQueen's not there. I'm not even still swaying to Merca. I'm going to center on a guy that, maybe I know I'm a little sentimental with brothers, right? With brothers in the organization, but I see another tall center out there from the QMJHL, and that's Caleb Desnoyers, brother of Elliot. I think that would be a good fit. Jake O'Brien, even out of Brantford, another 6'2" center would be a good fit, right? I think there's a lot of center icemen that you could target early in that draft between that 5 and 8 range. And Danny's shown, like we did with Jet, where he'll reach down and grab his guy. And I know this organization is high on, both Desnoyers and Jake O'Brien. And I think you could still, because the Flyers, as it is today, as of this moment, they have 3 first-round picks. You could come back towards the end of this first round, and there's a lot of defensive talent in, that range that you can draft. You look at a guy like Wang, 6'6", Blake Fiddler, 6'4", Peyton Kettles, 6'5", right? Cameron Reed is at 6 feet, right? There's a lot of meat on the back end in terms of defensive talent, right? I think you really, if you want to have a successful draft for the Flyers, you need this center on center, excuse the pun, and really, I believe you could get comfortably Roger McQueen. I know in the chat we saw if Higgins somehow slips down, maybe you go that way. And I'd be for that because of that goal scoring talent. He's again a little on the small side, like we've been drafting of recent, and that's already currently on this roster. So I'm with you, Brian. I would want to center on size, but if Higgins slips down, I don't think it'd be hard to pass up on him. But I think Roger McQueen would be a good fit. He would.
I mean, I agree with you. I agree with both of you guys. That's my pick at 5. I think Roger McQueen's the guy because you need that big-bodied center. You do. And Roger McQueen's he's top 6 talent. Obviously the gem's going to be next year with Gavin McKenna. He's the gemstone. But I don't think the Flyers are going to be bad enough next year that's going to happen. So you might as well just kind of forget about him unless the Flyers are really, really bad, which I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think you can go wrong with either guy because, they're both big bodies. They're both physical players. I think Roger McQueen is just going to fit more of a need where you can get that, you can fill that defensive need in free agency, like Brad was saying earlier in the show, in Aaron Ekblad. You can fill that need with a few different players. I'm going to see if I can bring any more up here real quick. As far as defensemen go, give me position. There we go. Of course, they're going to give me all the right wingers first, right?
Of course they will.
Center, right wing, center. Of course they're going to do that. Let me see here. Let me see if I can do this real quick. Talks amongst yourselves. I'll give you guys a topic.
All right,
I'm getting verklempt
for you guys. Here's one for you guys. While you find it, you think the Bruins get rid of Pasternak?
No.
And rebuild?
Mm-mm.
He's still young enough to.
He's still he's only 28. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just throwing a couple of names out there. Let's see. How long? Yeah, I'm looking at like Sheffley, but I think that he's already 32. I don't know if they would go the distance for him, but there are some centers out here that I don't see any of these top centers being available. Honestly, like I'm looking at the top 25 centers in the league, and the only one that I could see that maybe they could try to get their hands on would be Protas, but I don't know if Washington would get rid of him. I mean,
no, he's a big part of their future.
Yeah, I can't say. What about Tage Thompson?
He's not leaving Buffalo. He's the only reason why they're as good as they are.
That's not very.
Besides, I'm pretty sure he signed a long-term deal too.
No. I'm saying to trade for him.
Oh, that's going to cost a ton.
But they have
that's going to cost a ton.
Up.
You're like I said, you're probably better off going for a defenseman via trade or free agency and just get a center in the draft. Defensemen aren't going to cost you as much. I mean, if I would love Shea Theodore here, I think he would be a really good fit, but I think he signed another extension too. He was another guy that was coming up as a free agent option. I think he would be a good fit, but I'm pretty sure he signed. I'm going to look up here real quick. Top NHL defensemen, 2025 free agents. Here we go. All right, so we're gonna look at the top. All right, spot tracks. Hopefully, you're easier to work with. Haha, here we go. All right, we're cooking with gas now, boys. So some of the defensemen are going to be very Brent Burns obviously isn't going to be an option. Dmitry Orlov, Ekblad I would consider an option.
Brent Burns is 40 years old.
That's why he's not an option.
No, he's too old.
Gavrikov I think could be a nice option. I mean, I'm not looking for a guy that's going to really kind of you want to sign to a long-term deal, just kind of like a player that's going to help mold some of the younger guys into better players. Guy like maybe a Brian Dumoulin, sign him to a 1, maybe 2-year deal. I mean, outside of Aaron Ekblad, I mean, even the defenseman pool is kind of thin. There's not really a whole lot of guys out here that I would even consider. Oh, Tony DeAngelo is going by Anthony now, just a FYI.
No, he went by that when he was with the Rangers.
But yeah, I mean, there's a couple interesting young names, but I mean, outside of some of the veterans that could help take this defense to the next level, I'm not really seeing much. I mean, Aaron Ekblad would really be the only guy I personally would be interested in. Maybe a Tyson Barrie. He's 33. He's coming off a season where he's making $1 million, 1.25 mil. So he could be an option as a 7th D-man, 3rd pairing.
Yeah, that doesn't. You really, at this point, you want to move the needle. That's my opinion. But I think you got to try to move the needle. I think with all the first round picks that the Flyers have,
he's a provy.
Okay,
come on, Benny. Put
a couple out there, and see if you can bring in one of these big time centers. Some of these teams might listen. I don't know if any of these teams are going to want to do it, but regardless of how much money they're making, I mean, obviously you're not going to get McKinnon or Draisaitl or Eichel. I mean, the top centers: McDavid, Crosby, Suzuki, Sheffield, Keller, Natchez, Duchesne, Point, Reinhart, Getzel, Strome, Thomas, Stoltze, Matthews, Tavares, Trace Thompson, Aho, Hughes, Barkov, Wyatt Johnson, Hershier, and Protus. Those right now are the top. That's your top 25 in the league. Do you think you can pull a trade where you trade a couple of your draft choices and get any of those guys?
Because unfortunately, most of those guys are going to be built into being future franchise players for them and big pieces moving forward. For Protus is a perfect example. Young kid, flourishing with Washington, having a massive year. He's a future piece for that team to stay relevant, to be able to make that rebuild a little bit quicker. And now you got Ryan Leonard into the mix. McKinnon, Draisaitl, all those guys, they're all franchise guys. They're not going anywhere. And Draisaitl just signed a 14-year deal.
Yeah. No, I'm just throwing the name.
Or sorry, $14 million deal. I think over the next 8 years. So it's like, I want nothing to do with that. I mean, maybe. I'm not going to say no because you never know. Maybe. Some of the lower tier guys that you were kind of rallying off.
Maybe Clayton Keller.
That's going to be a tough pull. They just gave him the C, so I don't know if Clayton Keller would be an option. But I mean, we'll dive more into this stuff when we get more into the offseason and things start to become a little bit more clear. We have more coaching options. We're going to see who's getting interviewed and stuff like that. What's up, Ted? It's been a while. Bob Brown saying go Flyers. Go Flyers. And Anthony just having fun saying to sign Yager, sign Lindros. Lindros is not in shape anymore, Ant. I don't know if you've seen him recently. And then Benny said we have the draft capital, which is true, which I do see a trade in the works. I mean, there could be options. There's a ton of different routes that the Flyers can go, but we're about 5 minutes left in the show. We want to address obviously the history that was made for Benny. Wyatt Johnson got signed already. They signed him a day after signing Mikko Rantanen, or the day of they signed Mikko Rantanen. But the Wyatt Johnson deal is done. I would have loved him. He would have been a perfect fit. All good, Benny. All good. So we're going to dive into the history that happened over the weekend. Sunday. Well, let's backtrack to Friday. Friday, Alexander Ovechkin made history by tying the all-time goal record that Wayne Gretzky set 21 years ago at 894 goals. Scored 2 goals against
the Blackhawks.
Who was it that they played?
Blackhawks,
yes. I knew it was a red team. I couldn't remember which one. So scores 893, scores 894. Has an opportunity for the hat trick. They pull the goalie. He says, no. First of all, massive respect. You're getting a tip of the cap for this, Ovi. He wants to score the goal with the goaltender in the net. So tip of the cap. He definitely tried.
You're not going to break the whole list of records like that. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But what I like, too, is it's instead you give an opportunity to a young player, and then 20-year-old Ryan Leonard got the empty netter instead. It just shows
how he skated. He looked like he was shot out of a cannon.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my goodness.
Boy, can he skate. Woo.
Oh, yeah. Ooh. So, scores 894, game ends. Washington wins by a score of 5-3. Cue Sunday. First period goes by. Washington down to the New York Islanders 2-0 early. Power play happens. Who's first out on the ice? Alexander Ovechkin. Within a few minutes, we'll not say not even a minute into the power play, Ovi breaks a record. Scores number 895, breaks the 21-year-old all-time scoring record against Ilya Sorokin, who, oddly enough, was one of the few goaltenders in the league that he did not score on. Gets the history-making goal. Gets Ilya Sorokin's goalie stick because he has the sticks of every goalie that he's ever scored on. Just amazing feat.
He must have an awful lot of Lundqvist sticks then.
He's got a bunch of his collection is disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. Heather in the chat saying she agrees to the poll. Hey Heather. Big milestone. Obviously something I don't think any of us ever thought we were going to see in our lifetime, because 894, that's a lot of fucking goals, boys.
Yeah, and he's not finished either.
Nope, he's still got another year left on his contract
this year.
Yeah, I think he's up to 42.
Jesus, for a 39-year-old player, for a 39-year-old guy.
Russian players are just built different, man. I feel like I say this a lot. They're just built different. So, scores 895. I do have a little bit of fun things here set up real quick, and I definitely want the chat involved in this. First of all, everybody in the chat, are you serious? The freaking Braves came back and won. How about that? Phillies up 5-3, lose 7-5. Damn. Anyway, so back to Ovi. Have a little bit of fun here. So, first of all, chat, I want you to drop your favorite moments, favorite Ovi goals in the chat. We're going to go over them real quick. We're going to give you ours. I think Rob has one set up because I think me and Rob are on the same page for our favorite goal by Alexander Ovechkin. So drop in the chat if you have a favorite goal, favorite moment for Ovechkin. I think this is a very special moment. I'm also going to go on the record, and I'm going to give you guys a hot take. You guys ready for this one? Chat, you ready for this one? I know, X, you're going to probably roast me for this. I don't think Ovi holds the record very long. I think in the next 10 years, 10 to 15 years, I think Austin Matthews takes the record. Austin Matthews is already up to about 400 goals.
That'd be nice to have an American do that.
Well, not just that. He's got 400 goals already on his career. He's only 27. If he stays on pace the way he is, I know he's having an off year because he missed about 15 games this year. He's on pace to do it. If he can rebound and have another 60-goal year last year, he absolutely can put himself back on pace to break the record. I think he can do it. I was very skeptical. I was very adamant that I think Ovi could have done it, and obviously he did.
Yeah. When a lot of people said he might not, you were pro it. I recall. Yes.
So here's what's really going to make or break what I'm saying about Austin Matthews. Next year, if he remains on pace for what he's doing now, Ovi could wind up with about 950 goals in his career. And that's if he maintains his 40-goal pace. I don't know if Matthews can hold up that pace for that long, but if he can have a couple 50, 60-goal years over the next 10 years on top of just staying in that 40 zone, I think he's going to absolutely make a case at least.
So much has to go right, though. Health, the unknown. So, I mean, a lot goes into records, but they were made to be broken.
I also want to give a shout out, and I know a lot of people are going to hate this, especially Heather, now that she's in the chat. She's going to hate this. I also, just because it went very under the radar, you got to give a shout out to Sidney Crosby breaking another Gretzky record this year by having 20 seasons averaging a point per game.
Yeah.
You got to give him his due credit. He really is one of the, if not the best all-around player in hockey, one of the best in the world. Say what you want, call him a crybaby, call him a bitch, say what you want. He really is the best all-around hockey player in the world right now. You can make a case for Connor McDavid for sure, but Connor McDavid he's up there. He's my number 2. But you can't. You gotta tip the cap to Sid. Sid the kid, still putting up a point per game pace at his age. At his age, he's not slowing down either. Got to give the respect to the best, whether you like him or not. So tip of the cap to Sid. Tip of the cap to Ovi for this week. Boys, before we jump into your favorite moments here, looks like Robbie's got our stuff all queued up. All right, boys. let's see what this clip is all about. Here we go.
Well, I'm going to set it up. I mean, this goes back to 2006, and some of the people tuning in might not be old enough to remember this, but we surely do. And it's one of my favorite goals of all time, let alone from Ovi's career. I mean, you could talk about the double tap goal he had against Pittsburgh in the semifinals on their way to winning the cup. That was a pretty solid goal. But this one, it's hard to beat. It was Sportsnet's all-time greatest goal. So it's kind of hard, for it not to be Ovechkin's greatest goal. So if I could just get the screen to pop up and push play, I'll be able to play it for y'all. Why is it? There we go.
There it is. Technology. I mean, this is such a great goal. I mean, obviously there was a lot of luck involved in this, and it's even hurts even worse that it was Brian Boucher in net. But that's easily the greatest goal of all time by Alexander Ovechkin, and he's had so many great ones. But I mean, he's even come out to say how lucky he was with this goal. That was just pure, unadulterated luck. But you don't see goals like that these days. You don't see goals like that very often to begin with. For it to come from the guy who winds up years later being the guy to break the all-time goal record.
Yeah, you watch that goal, and you realize what a tough guy he is. He doesn't just he does score a lot of goals from his office. Yes, he does. But you know what? When he wants to go to the front of the net, or he's going to the net, that is a locomotive train, and he is really hard to stop.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Rob, I don't know if you noticed this over the last few days, especially on the power play. He's not moving like he used to, so he kind of finds his little spot there and he camps out.
I mean, that's where he makes his money, in his office, right between the circles, for sure. Mm-hmm. But one thing you got, you gave respect to him for, not, breaking the record the proper way, right, and not in an empty net situation, as do I, right? But I think we got to also respect the man for being a true goal scorer, and now unquestionably the best goal scorer of all time, the GOAT. Mm-hmm. But he could certainly dish it out, but he could take it too. On top of being the best goal scorer of all time, he has 3,734 career hits, regular season and playoffs combined, which is fourth all time.
Damn, I didn't realize he hit that many people.
Yes.
Going back to what Brad said about him being a locomotive, like that's a guy you don't want to hit you because
he was when he wants to go to the net, nobody's going to stop him.
Right.
That's why it's when I hear some people saying that he just stands in his office and fires that wrist shot, it's like you guys obviously haven't been tormented by him enough to really know what he can do.
Well, not even just that, but he only does that on the power play. He's scoring even strength. He's 5 on 5.
Or when he's chasing down the record, he's been camping out there a little bit more, as he should be.
Yeah.
As but I mean, it sets up with the Caps now. Going for dad bod power.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember he had a hat trick once against the Rangers, and he basically scored all 3 goals from maybe 5 feet away from the goal, 5 feet away from the net. He just out physicals everybody. I mean, he's a combination of Mario Lemieux and Phil Esposito. He really is. That's the best way to describe him. Phil Esposito was the best close to the net player I've ever seen, ever. And Mario Lemieux, to me, was the best one-on-one player I've ever seen. And that includes Gretzky. One-on-one, nobody could just go out there and try to stick check him or and steal the puck from him.
Yeah, right.
But when Ovechkin gets the puck, it's just his power to ward off the opponent because he's so big and he's so strong. I mean, it's a shame because Lindros could have been that player too if he didn't get hurt.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, they're very similar styles, and Lindros had that nasty wrist shot. as well.
Well, here, before we sign off tonight, this was the question I had for you boys. And Brian, you said he has one more year on the contract, but he sets the all-time goal scoring record, right? And he can further it by playing last year on his contract, no doubt. But let's say the Caps, regular season success doesn't always translate to the playoffs, but they've been surprisingly one of the best teams in the NHL competing for the President's Trophy, right? Let's say these Caps go on and he then wins his second cup with the Caps after setting the all-time goal scoring record. Does he ride off into the sunset?
He might. At that point, you win your second cup. You already have the scoring record. What else do you have? What else do you need to do? Technically, he's got everything he's wanted in his career now. I'll be honest, if they win the cup this year, which is a very good possibility, I think they are one of the favorites. And I think with the goaltending tandem that they have, it's very doable. Holy shit, maybe he does. And maybe he lets go of that last year of his contract, goes to play a year or two in the KHL, calls it quits, and comes back to be a dad.
You don't think that he wants to try to score 1,000?
He's not going to get 1,000.
We didn't think he'd get 8. We didn't think he'd get 895 either.
He'd have to. His plan is next year done. KHL done. He wants to be retired, and be a dad and start coaching his kid. So right. He's not playing. He's not going to be like Yager where he's playing at 51, 52 years old, just because. He's still a long ways off. That's 100 goals. And if he's at a 40 goal a year pace, he'd have to play another 2, maybe 3 years. I don't think he has that planned in the NHL.
Maybe not, but I wouldn't put it past him that he couldn't do it.
Yeah. He's 42 at 39. It's, but it doesn't fit the timeline,
He missed 6
and
weeks.
You could argue like players like Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid may challenge this record one day, but a lot of things got to go right for them. Just like, what did Gretzky's record stand? 21 years?
21 years.
Yeah. So, and then the point scoring, forget about it. If Gretzky never scored a goal, he'd still be the all points leader.
Nobody. Yeah, nobody's going to catch him ever for points. There are 2 records to me that'll never be broken. Okay, Gretzky and Johnny Vandermeer's 2 consecutive no-hitters in a row.
Oh, you got to throw Teemu Selanne's rookie goal record in there too. Nobody's touching that.
Yeah, he had 76. Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah, nobody's touching that one.
No. Okay, I'll give you that one.
Yeah. I'm with you on the other 2.
Vandermeer is the one that safe to me is the safest. Nobody is going to throw 3 no-hitters in a row ever.
No. The closest was going to be Roy Halladay, but he never got to it. He did perfect game during the regular season, no-hitter in the postseason. That's the closest I think we were going to get to it.
Consecutively, though?
It was the same year. Oh, back-to-back?
I'm talking about consecutive games.
Yeah, back-to-back games, yeah.
Oh, yeah, nobody's touching that.
No.
I agreed with you regardless. I didn't realize that it was like consecutive, like back-to-back starts.
Yeah. No. Yeah, he did it. He did back-to-back starts. I remember David Wells threw a perfect game, and then I think the next week he had a 7-inning no-hitter, and everybody was freaking out. And then he got lit up in the 8th inning.
I tell you what, 2 guys that I could see potentially doing it currently in Major League Baseball, and it's on equal sides of the coin. One is a KG veteran like Framber Valdez. I could see him doing back-to-back no-hitters, and part of the new blood, Paul Skeens from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
He has a pitcher like a pitch repertoire and a maturity that I've never seen.
But they don't throw complete games though anymore.
Yeah. But
Not
I
this
mean,
early
he
in the
has
season,
that
at least.
makeup though, because he has like 7 or 8 different pitches. He throws like a splinker. It's a split finger sinker. Like
He
I've
calls
seen-
it a
it's crazy
splinter?
how
I've
many
seen that
pitches
one
there
pitch he
are
throws.
now.
That one pitch I remember he struck out Judge on a pitch that started on the outside corner like a screwball that
Yeah.
went straight in, right in his hands.
Yeah,
And it kind of went down a little bit. And
sounds
Judge,
like the sweeper.
Judge gave him a look like, what the hell was that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sick.
All right, boys. All right. So I know me and Rob basically just admitted to that clip being our favorite OV goal, favorite OV moment. Brad, what was your favorite OV goal, OV moment before we get out of here?
My favorite OV moment was the way he celebrated winning the Stanley Cup.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like
Okay,
that.
it's
I like that.
nonstop celebrating, and you know, guys all know what I'm talking about.
He was
Yeah.
he spent the whole summer drunk. Like that was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, he celebrated the right way.
Nobody
was one of
celebrated a championship better than Alex
my-
Ovechkin.
Nobody ever celebrated
Nobody.
better than him. No.
Fuck Tom Brady and Gronkowski in Tampa. Nobody.
I mean,
Nobody.
I mean, as stern as he acts all the time, he was like a little kid when he won that Stanley Cup. He was so happy. I've never seen anybody so happy as he was.
Yeah, I mean that was pretty magical watching him do that. And what was actually pretty cool is the celebration he did on Sunday replicated when I think it was the championship parade, the Stanley Cup parade in Washington in the fountain, doing the belly dive, going across into the fountain. Did the same thing after he scored that goal. Went right to center ice, belly flopped on the ice, and then took a snow shower from John Carlson. You gotta love it. You gotta love hockey, man.
Yep.
This is an unbelievable sport, and there's so much unbelievable. Like when you get a guy like Alexander Ovechkin in this league that is a giant child, plays a game, shows how much he loves it. It's hard not to be romantic about this sport.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
I think he tripped and he went with it. That's his mind.
Maybe. I mean, he did look pretty awkward when he hit the ice, so it could have been. It absolutely could have been.
Well, he's not a diver, guys.
No, never has been.
No.
No.
Guy Lafleur, he probably, or Bill Barber, those two would have done the dive very, very well.
Possibly. I never got to see those guys live, so unfortunately, I'll never know.
Guy Lafleur was the diving champ. He was a great player. Don't get me wrong, but he was the diving champion. But Bill was right behind him.
I mean, is he any relation to Peter Lafleur, the greatest dodgeball player of all time?
Don't know.
I mean, they say Patches O'Houlihan was the best, but I don't know. Peter Lafleur gave Patches O'Houlihan a run for his money. So, and obviously, let's not forget about Bobby Orr too. So, you have the historic goal where he pretty much scored a goal.
The goal against St. Louis,
6 feet off the air, pretty much instantly. So we can't forget about that either. But boys, this has been a lot of fun. Great conversation tonight. We gotta start wrapping up here. We gotta get out of here. We all got stuff to do.
Yes.
As always, to the chat, we appreciate you guys. Twitter side, Facebook side, everybody that chimed in, everybody hit that like, hit that share. We appreciate you guys. Everything you do, everything that you bring to the table as far as conversation goes. We love you. You guys are awesome as always. And also, as always, we are brought to you by Specialized Physical Therapy. Go see Dr. Paul Vidal in either Cherry Hill or Burlington. They'll get you right. Go to specializedphysicaltherapy.com if you have any questions regarding that. Those guys will take very good care of you. And next Tuesday, 9 o'clock, as always, we will be back. But until then, Dales, Pove, Brad, hope you guys all have a great week. We'll talk to you. Be good out there.